Okay. Hi, welcome everyone watching today. I'm really excited. I've got a good friend of mine. I've known her for a few years now, 4 years. Her name is a beautiful name, Tara Perlaki. She's the most beautiful name, Tara Perlaki. And she is she's many things. She's a sponge for knowledge. She is so wise. She helps women, predominantly women, with their healing journey to come back into balance, usually after losing their way. And I'm definitely someone who can share their story of what my life was like before meeting Tara and after. She's a kinesiologist as well. She's a women's health expert, and now she not only does she work one-to-one with people, but she also she's a teacher, she's a creator, she's helps people in group formats now. She's studying yoga too, and she's got loads of exciting things in the future. So hi, Tara.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, and we've got a cup of tea, haven't we? Hey,
Absolutely.
lovely. We've just done our oils, and you just pulled a card. What was the card that you pulled? You need to show everyone, because this is just so aligned with what we're trying to. What can you read it out?
Sisterhood of the Rose, which is for beauty and devotion, priestess, mystic, and teacher. Just how profound for this morning.
I know. Well, that is so you. That is so you. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that anyone that watches this is going to enjoy our conversation, because we do have lots of good conversations, don't we? We just keep going for hours, and we can just talk about consciousness, anything spiritual, emotional, what's going on in the world, like stuff that's coming up for us, and sharing. And it's just you become a very beautiful friend, as well as an amazing support system to me. So thank you. And my journey started with a very painful time in my life where I just had Toby, so he's 5 now, but this was going back 5 years ago. Although I met Tara 4 years ago at a network meeting, didn't we? And you were doing a fertility talk, or not fertility, cycles, talking about our menstrual cycle, and like I thought it was so fascinating how to use each part of the cycle to get the most out of your energy and your life. So can you give us an example of that? Like, because just to give people like a baseline foundation of, they can imagine how we met and what you were talking about. And that you had a Facebook group, Connect Your Feminine Flow, as well.
Yeah,
you shared
definitely
more.
So we connected over periods, basically. And part of my role is to start sharing women's gifts, and to help bring that awareness to women as to what's going on within themselves, whether that be their physical body, whether that be in their energy, whether that be in their spirit, whether that be in their minds. Because for me, what I observe is that we've been really stripped of so much really helpful and useful information that contains so much wisdom, and would make our path and our journeys as women a lot easier had we had this information, easily available to us growing up in our communities, in our families. And so when we met, part of what I was doing was sharing this information that I'd come across about 12 months previously, which is about understanding your cycle in a different way to how we had perhaps learned at school. So before my journey sort of began, which I'll explain more, I probably would say I had the times in the month where I felt good and the times in the month where I felt rubbish. And I think many women would kind of just see it in that way. They're sort of the bits that you survive and the bits that actually you're like, yeah, feel good. And what I got to understand when I delved a bit deeper into our cycles was actually there's like 4 different phases. And then in those phases, and they're biologically set, this is the hard wiring we have in our body, but those 4 different phases then contain different ways for us to be able to view our world, the energy that we have for our life, the ability we have to have meaningful conversations with those that are around us. It will alter the conversations that we have about ourselves to ourselves. It will affect our confidence. It will affect down to our food cravings. And so this way of being and working with our bodies and working with our cycles, I found so profound for me that I began to then find ways to share. And this is where we connected, because I find so many women, when they start to hear this information, and at that point it is just this information, but it resonates somewhere deep within them, and resonates at a level of like, just that, yes. And then from there, you can start to unpick and take what it is that you may need to be able to support you in your life. And again, that becomes part of my guidance role, is to work with you to understand how your cycle shows up for you, and then to start looking at ways in terms of how you can support yourself, so that actually, you know, you can rest when you need to rest. You can go and, you know, make those connections in your business at those times when you want to. You can go and have amazing sex at these points in your cycles, and likewise, you can retreat under a blanket and eat chocolate, and you know, have that time, inward time, meditating to connect with yourself. Because each month we're 4 different women. We're the same woman, but with 4 different aspects, and I find that's incredible and so beautiful and so powerful. And so when women can then start to understand, and then they can start to reclaim themselves, and that's where the feminine space was born, because these are very feminine traits, these are very feminine ways of being, and there's something really special in that.
Please excuse me, I've had an internal giggle as you were talking, because I just remembered something. No, I remembered the batshit crazy like term, which I thought, I just like that. I was like, yeah, I can relate to that. So that was, so if anyone's watching, that's the bit just pre-period when your PMS kicks in. For some people it's more than others, right? Some people will get like mood swings, clumsy is one of them as well. And so we put ourselves down, and that we really like we knock our own self-esteem, because we haven't got the awareness or the knowledge that it's our hormones that are affecting our ability to hold a plate, or, you know, not forget your keys. Oh my goodness, I did that twice this week, and I am in the batshit crazy week. I just realised that. But, you know, as I come to connect with myself more through this journey, like years later, you know, I do honour myself more, and I honour my body more. I respect myself, and we have to kind of disconnected from that, don't you think?
Massive. And because we get conditioned, I believe we get conditioned into certain ways of being, i.e. this consistency, how you were yesterday is how you should be tomorrow, then actually we can start to then set up these really negative self-conversations. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you've got any form of lacking confidence or self-worth issues, self-esteem issues, they're gonna absolutely get highlighted and really amplified on your period. You know, especially like those batshit crazy phases, you can then make judgments that that's who you are. And actually it's not, it's just a part of your cycle, and you'll move through it and you'll transition through it. And because then we judge those parts of ourselves for how we show up at those points, you know, being clumsy or having less energy or being really scattered or perhaps more fiery. You know, I got told, heard wild woman described in this particular phase as well, that we judge ourselves for it. So that can really knock our confidence and self-esteem even further, when actually it's just a really beautiful part of the cycle. And when you learn how to work with it, you can have much kinder, more like loving conversations with yourself. Still means that it can still feel like a bit of a squeeze. I'm not going to take that away. You know, if you suffer with PMT, it still can feel like, oh, I'm riding the wild woman. But you understand that you're not broken, that actually this is just part of a phase, and it will move and it will shift and it will change, and that there is so much genius. I think like that becomes my favorite part of the cycle for me now, which is so weird. I never thought I would say that.
Batshit crazy week.
Batshit crazy week is my favorite week, because for me that's where I get the greatest downloads, it's where I get the greatest realizations, it's where I get the greatest connections, it's where I get the greatest insights and awareness. Yeah, it's a really powerful.
I wonder, and maybe this is a downer because I'm on batshit crazy week, because I've dropped my keys this week, locked myself out, Twice in the last week I've locked myself out or in. And yeah, me and Toby had to be rescued. Oh my God, he was late to school. Anyway, it was we learned how to like come into inner peace and not let the exterior affect our interior. Like, it was a really good lesson. Like, I see the gift in it all. But I wonder if the downloads come when you're not grounded because you're somewhere else. But I thought that was the winter period, like the bleed week, was where you had a lot of, you're quite psychic more than the other times of the, it's more inward, isn't it? But I just wondered that. I wonder whether they're not being grounded and aware of where your keys are and the physical, the here, the 3D, plus having these more downloads is, yeah, that feels like that connects. See what I'm saying? Not being so yeah, but up there you are connected.
So this becomes about learning your cycle. This is the gift. This is where it stops being information and starts to become knowledge and power. So learn your cycle, because we're all unique. And so there is this meditative energy when you come into your bleed. There is this openness when you come into your bleed, and this stillness that comes in. What I find is that the sort of 5 days before, 5 to 7 days before I start to bleed, I start this quickening process. It's a really interesting journey. So I'm really aware now of having a huge amount of energy at the start of that week before I bleed, and then it really dropping off about 24, 48 hours before I bleed. But in that time, in those journeys, that week, the insights that I start to get, like, I'm conscious. It's a really creative phase for me. It's a really, if my cycle when I bleed is this meditative state, this I see as like a really creative window where it's like the insights start to drop in. I start to receive more downloads. But if I want to understand them, to know which ones are what I would call real rather than created, I need to then take them into my bleed. So if they stay with me during my bleed and coming out the other side,
bleed on it. I remember you saying that 4 years ago. You bleed on it with those ideas. Yeah. Don't make a decision and outwardly take action. You just sit with it, and I love that, because we're not really taught how to do that, are we?
Because we're not conditioned. Like, there's something about rest and stillness that I know I do, and many women find really challenging, because we do have quite a culture about do more, be more, when actually there is so much magic in the stillness. And this is what I've been on a journey to understand over the last few years. And it's, I feel like this is elevating now in terms of our consciousness, this awareness around stillness and being and presence. But we've still got some way to go before it's really valued in the same way as productivity, and really valued in the same way as that activity that we have so embedded in our culture.
We weren't really going to talk about periods, but obviously we were meant to, because it affects so many people, and not just those that have actual periods, but even those that are perimenopausal, menopausal. There's still a cycle, and even men to a certain degree have their own cycle. So, and I just got one more thing to say about this with the I see a fridge, I see a woman with their chart, and I see the man actually taking note of the chart of her period, so that he's in the know of like where she's at with her cycle. I don't know what that means, but working together. I don't know what that means, but do people do that?
Definitely. So let me introduce you to my husband, who was in the army, who, like, tears was something he was never comfortable with at all. Like, when we first met, he was just like, oh, I don't know, what do I do? She's broken, she's leaking. and then around, as we went into our fertility journey, then we started looking more at periods and cycles. So I began unfolding this journey around cycling, around tracking and my period. So he got to learn my cycle with me. And whilst the motivations were for fertility, this also became something so much more significant. And I think this is why it resonates. And whenever I start to have conversations with women, no matter what is going on in their life, this becomes a baseline foundation conversation, because it is our feminine essence. It is us reclaiming that we are secular. It is us reclaiming that we have wounds, and we are encouraged to separate more and more and more from our wounds and what makes us women. That's been so fractured and separated, and there's so many issues for women with their wounds: period pains, PMT, endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, you name it. Women have got such a complex relationship with the very thing that makes them women, which is why I believe that this is why so often when I have these conversations and connect with women, we come back to this, because women are now wanting to have something that they can work with. That doesn't mean that they are broken, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. Actually, this stuff is freedom in its purest formation, because it's liberating to know, oh, I'm secular. So these rhythms that I have where I go up and down
are normal.
That's me being a woman.
It's okay. It's a massive breakthrough, isn't it? Acceptance of self.
Absolutely. And that's why I believe that this becomes such a powerful conversation and such a foundation conversation. And what I've become, so known for as well as the other work is to start having these conversations, because look how it sets us alive, and the realizations that we've had and what that then gives us, and the conversations with our partners and how we can work with them so that we can get our partners support. I know I was saying about how far my husband's come. He preempts, the other day we had a conversation. He was like, "Cool, I know that this isn't a good time in your cycle for this. We're speaking about it." I'm like, sweet, I don't even have to do anything now. Like, he just gets this. Likewise, there's a couple of days a month where I'm very scatterbrained. Trying to cook a meal suddenly feels like the Krypton factor. I leave trails of destruction everywhere. I'm clumsy as anything. But now we've got to the place where I can just go, babe, could you just take over with this right now? And he's like, yes, sweet, no worries. That's partnership, isn't it?
Oh.
So
real accountability and support, that is, yeah.
But this doesn't just set us free, it also helps men too, because it's acceptance, isn't it, at a fundamental level, just acceptance of self.
Do you remember when we went on that, I just got a flashback of when you and I went to the One Woman conference. It was like 2
yeah.
And they had a panel of men and we had to ask questions. And I remember putting my hand up at one point and it just flashed to me what I said, and it was, is it true that a man is happy when the woman is happy? I think it was something around that, and it just flashed through just now. So that's so aligned with this. If a woman can understand her cycle and share that with her partner, and they can work together with her cycle, how powerful is that? Then not only will she be happier for the support and the understanding and empowerment, but so will he as a result. That's just what came through. How beautiful. I'm so excited to be talked about this, because it is what, like, you lit up to me. I was in such a dark time, and I think I wanted to know about contraception because I just had Toby before, and I really didn't want to. I was looking at vaccinations and lots of other ways to holistically support myself and Toby. And when it came to, I've been on the pill for about, 10, 12 years or something, I'm not sure. And I just wasn't, there was something put me off it. There was something, I don't want to put that into my body. So I wanted to know, I wanted to come to you for advice on that. Came to you for one-to-one. It wasn't about that. It was about my trauma, my grief, the betrayal and the grief of losing a fact, like what I felt was, what I wanted was a family. And then, if anyone that doesn't know, I had Toby, and then very quickly became a single mum because there was some some issues with deceit and cheating and things like that, lying. And so my whole world came crashing down, and what I believed to be true wasn't. So, you know, I had to navigate what is the truth and start rebuilding. And I know that you work mainly with women on their fertility journey now, but at that time I needed you. I really needed that support. And I remember coming to a meeting with all these amazing women, and one of our tasks for this network meeting was to share our win. What did we achieve since the last meeting? I think it was 2 weeks previous or a month previous. And it was my first one. And, you know, I've always been a really confident, happy person, but, you know, this was one of many things that had happened in a domino effect in my life, which caused me a lot of internal pain. Now I see the gift in it, and I had to go through it. And everyone came to their share, and they were saying things like, yeah, I've published a book, I've traveled to America, I've had like an interview on this channel, and you know, just so many freaking amazing things, one after the other. These women were powerful, they were on point, they were aligned, and there I was. I had nothing. I couldn't. Do you know what I wrote down? Getting through the day. Just surviving, getting through the day with my 1-year-old. And when I came to share it, it was so emotional, but the love and support was just there from people that I didn't even know. So this is like just getting sisterhood again. Like the sisterhood was there, and the sisterhood is here. So if anyone's watching and they're resonating with anything we're saying, or they've been through something similar, and I'm sure, Tara, if you want to share your journey, personal journey with your struggles with fertility, then I'm sure that would be very inspiring for people too, when that feels right for you to share that. But you're not alone, guys. There is a sisterhood out there for you. We are here. That it's just that angel card that you picked. Sisterhood just solidifies that. Wow. So I had one-to-one work with you for about 12 months, 18 months, and it transformed me from the inside out. It really did. It took time, but I was dedicated to and honoured that support and needed that. And I remember seeing you for like an hour and a half, and then going off to Popular Nurseries and having a drink and just writing and journaling, and it all started flooding out, and you just beautifully held the space for me. And there's something that you can't really explain unless you've like been to see Tara. And I've sent people to you and said, like, you need to experience this for yourself. Because just sometimes you don't need to say too much, but your wisdom and your ability to just hold that other person enables me to reach down into my truth, into the real pain, and to really be vulnerable whilst feeling safe. And I really believe that's what you do, Tara. So let's talk about you. Let's talk about why. Have you always been quite intuitive? And because you're intuitive, but you're also a knowledge seeker, you got the best of both of us there, right? And you're creative. So like, have you, like, before we get into the fertility stuff, like, how did you get to where you were? How did you get to that point from when we met? What was your backstory before then, in terms of the healing journey and consciousness?
So I've always been able to feel, and again, like, I'm speaking now as a 40-year-old woman looking back, but I feel like I've always been really energetically sensitive and being able to feel other people's pains, highs, lows. And I've always been one of those women that people have come to and just gone, I don't even know why I'm telling you this. Like, I haven't spoken to anybody else about this. And here I am telling you my deepest, darkest thoughts, life secrets. You know, that came through school. That's come all my life. And so, again, you don't really know whether something's even a skill or a talent, because if you're born with stuff, you just kind of are. And also, not only would people share, but again, I can recognize, I see things that other people don't see. Or I always took that I was a bit odd. I used to feel really alone with my perspective, because I would see things or vision or see patterns and spot angles, perspectives, ways of seeing problems, issues, and then would share advice or guidance that wouldn't dawn on other people, wouldn't come from other people. And I think, God, I'm really kooky how I see the world. Nobody else sees it like this. And actually what I've learned is that that's my intuitive ability. And so these things, my ability for people to share and feel safe, and my intuitive skills have always been there. And that then started to really build up as I started to go through education and my work. I always started to become the person who would not just take care of others, but would help to develop others, help people grow. And so I did 8 years working for Scope, working to start with as a disability employment advisor, and then working with up into senior management, where I would help the teams, the staff, to be able to grow and develop their skills. So I always had an awareness of working with people that needed a voice, and also some really sound practical guidance around, like alterations in the workplace, for example, under legal requirements, but also like that human element of what is it that you need, what's going on for you. Okay, right, let's put in some tools, some systems, let's put in some things, whether it be a conversation that we need to have together, or whether it be something dynamic in terms of, a piece of equipment that's going to really help empower that person to be able to step forward and be the best person of them that they are. So it's been a really, I look back and all of this has been kind of preparation really to where I am now. But I think I woke up one day and just went, there's something that's calling me more than this. I can still remember the exact moment. It was Boxing Day, and my husband was in Afghan, and I was just like, there's more to life than what I'm doing right now. There was just this massive calling to just do something different. And that's then when I started to get curious, and I started to have a play and kinesiology, because I'd been to see a kinesiologist years before during a really difficult period of my life, and she'd helped lay a foundation of confidence that I didn't have before. And she helped me to become me, feel okay in terms of being me, with my self-confidence, my self-worth, my self-esteem. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. That's an awesome gift. I knew how much I received from going to see her, that if I've got an opportunity to pay it forward and to be able to share it with others, then let's see if I could do this. And then it turned out that I had somebody who was a teacher, had a school in the area that I lived, and 3 years later, ta-da, qualified as a kinesiologist. And that's, so my whole background has been in terms of personal development and progression, as it were, but within the fields around intuition and those safe places. And then all the amazing skill sets that came in from kinesiology and all of those tools. Kinesiology, when I studied that, so much suddenly made sense, because it was the first time that people didn't just talk about the mind. It was the first time that people didn't just talk about physical body, but they also spoke about the energetic body.
Yeah.
And that was like, my goodness, this is the stuff I need. This is the stuff that I've not had access to, this knowledge before. And yet this is the powerful stuff. This is the stuff that we don't talk about, but this is the stuff that felt like home, felt like I was coming home, and felt like for the first time I was finally given something I could work with and understand. And it's just gone from there, really.
Like a missing piece of the puzzle, but a big piece of the puzzle. Oh, look at this! Found a piece of jigsaw puzzle this morning. That was a little bit weird. Okay, but can you help by telling us what kinesiology is? Even though I've had it since I was a teenager, on and off, different people.
So I describe kinesiology as the ability to play detective with your body, to understand what the blocks are that are progressing you from moving forward to where you want to be. So
this could be, so just to get a picture here, say you want to move house and you can't, and you don't know why, and you're doing everything logically, okay, you're like working it out, and there's blocks and there's blocks and there's blocks, or there's maybe other people and it's frustrating you, and or whatever the situation, but you feel stuck. in your situation. Is that because there's an energetic block in your own personal body, antibody, would you say?
So the block might be in your mind, might be in your physical body, or might be in your energy. It could be in one of those three. And kinesiology allows me to start playing detective to see where the block is, and then look at what the support or the remedy is to then remove that block. So, you know, we hear a lot about abundance, like that's a big thing nowadays. And there's so many issues that we have as people around money, for example. So I can start to play detective to understand what those blocks are, to then look at removing them. And these can be from the stories that we're told as children, that we observe as children. You know I grew up with a saying of money doesn't grow on trees. And it's amazing how much you parrot, you know, what came in from the container that you grew up in or in your home life. But I also know people who've been through really extreme circumstances, traumatic events, and at that point they perhaps made a commitment to where they felt guilty over receiving privilege over somebody else, and so they made like a contract around, not like a vow of I will not receive to the detriment of somebody else. So you start to then create these blocks energetically. Or it might be that actually the thing that you need to be doing to attract the money in, you just don't have the energy to. You then might need physical nourishment and support to be able to then go and do the task, like launch a program, for example, that's going to, so you need the energy to launch a program that's then going to be able to help you to go forward and attract abundance. So everything's all tightly woven and intertwined, and that's the dance of this particular world, is that, you know, we become so linear and think it's always got to be this or this, but actually we're a constant dance and blend of our mind, body and energy. So that's why I love kinesiology, because it can go straight in, go, right, this is the issue. It might have come from when you were 5, it might be from a relationship breakdown, it might be because you had a traumatic event, you lost somebody dear to you, it might be, you know, a failed IVF attempt, it could be any of these things.
Are you able to find out what age that person, I mean, you're lying on a couch, aren't you, and your left arm up, and then you're asking the person to resist against your hand, yeah? How does that work? How does it actually work?
So with all of this, it becomes about energy. That's the main bit of testing, and it's so hard to explain, because this is the bit where it becomes an experience. This is the bit where it's about, you kind of have to feel it, you have to go through it, because other people, this is the hardest bit to explain, this is the hardest bit for people when it is this way.
But I know there'll be people here that like will probably want to understand it, and they're like, yeah, it sounds great, I have no idea what you're talking about. And for me, I don't need, like, I've experienced it, I believe it. I probably believed it before I even experienced it, because I just have this like intuition towards it. But a lot of people maybe are more analytical or logical or less intuitive, or they just want to know, and they, you know, so this stuff's important. But you're right, it is an experience that if you feel called to go, trust that, take the next step, try it out. It's safe, it's amazing. But yeah, like, can you give any more info on that?
So the best way I can describe it is that, like, if you've got a circle, what's happening there is that the energy will go around that circle. Now, again, we don't talk in these terms in the West, but these are, if we travel further east, this is so well known and so well held in regard in terms of energy being just as valued as the physical body. We tend to, in the West, work much more physical, sort of single dimensional. But so just bear with me with these words, but if you can imagine that this circle, there is energy that is going around right about now that's keeping that connected. However, if I introduce something that is stressful to this particular situation, it will change the energy. The energy will be interrupted. So anything that's stressful will come in and break the energy. Anything where the energy is flowing and therefore not stressful, there will be no break in that circuit. So what starts to happen is that when I'm testing muscles, I'm not testing their physical strength. people can bench press 120 pounds, but they will still not be able to resist if I introduce something that is stressful to their body. And that's the bit that becomes inexperienced, because we're so single dimensional, which is that, if I'm physically strong, I can always resist. This is about the energetic strength and the energetic flow. And that's what the kinesiologist in me and any kinesiologist, that's what bridges us together, is that we can muscle test and see what interrupts that circuit, to then know that's what we need to start exploring. That's what then needs the investigation.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, actually I have learned something new there.
So that's the foundation of every kinesiologist, how it will show up and how it will manifest and what they then choose to do with it. So I've chosen to combine this with more of my skills and abilities, which is about bringing women back to balance, and then further support around fertility journeys, and further support around helping women rebuild their life after infertility, and therefore looking forward to going into that child-free, childless life. So that's my route as to how I choose to use this particular tool to help women navigate all of this. But I also know that there are other women who work, or other kinesiologists, who will use this purely for nutrition. So they will have a client that they work purely in terms of nutrition and what the body needs to come back into balance. There are other kinesiologists who work with this purely around structural dentistry work or physical structures within the body, so bad backs, misalignments of hips or tendons, muscles. So they'll work much more within that realm. I tend to work much more in the emotional and the energetic realm. That's more my superpower. Although I am qualified within nutrition and more of those sort of practical skeletal side of things. But the work I do tends to be very much around sort of the emotions and those energies, because that's where I get that. And there's nothing like a fertility journey that just shatters women's energy. And with that, then also just creates these massive amounts of emotional turmoil. And that's where I tend to see women, when they're in those emotional roller coasters, when they're in those emotional washing machines, and they're just not sure what the next step is. And that's when they usually go, I need to come and see you. And that's when I begin to walk with them on their journey to wherever it is that they want to be heading towards.
So I haven't had this personal challenges with fertility, but I do know people that have, close to me. And just as an outsider, you feel helpless. I remember giving one of my friends a Clary Calm, which is an essential roller bottle, to help them, as a tool to help them to, she was, bless her heart, she was going through a miscarriage and was struggling to fully miscarriage, and that I knew from researching that this was something powerful to help her body to let go, naturally, like to induce her body's own ability to heal. And I've also seen other women that haven't had this holistic support or anyone to talk to, and they've really struggled, and they keep going around in these cycles where they are repeating IVF and seeing them emotion. I feel so helpless. And it's been so nice that I can go, right, I know someone that knows what she's talking about, that's had her own personal experiences, that will support you with all the emotional stuff that's going on, but that will free up this, that will help your body to initiate its own healing and come back to, like you say, balance. So how long have you been working with people who are facing challenges in their fertility, Tara? How long have you been doing that for?
So I started opening up to supporting women with womb issues, as it were, hormones, fertility stuff, period issues. About 2015 was when I started to share more of this, and that was all born out of my journey to become a mum. Because as I went deeper into my journey of becoming a mum, became really apparent how little I knew about this vessel that I was in, you know, my female body. And this then felt like a calling as I was learning more and more about being a woman. And interestingly, the thing that I found so incredible was that to conceive a baby, I believe the woman almost has to be in her ultimate feminine essence, and the masculine almost has to be in his ultimate masculine energy. You know, that's just the sperm and the egg. So, and there are so many things that we're holding so much as women, that there are so many things that affect us that we just don't know about. And I find that such a shame. And they have such big implications when you're on your fertility journey. It starts with periods, our relationship to our womb. It's about understanding what foods our womb needs to be in optimal health. It's understanding that those period problems, when we first came on our periods at 11 and the doctors just went, take the pill, come back and see me when you want to conceive. Actually, it's about rewriting that script and going, at 11, you are important as a woman. And we recognize that as a woman, you don't come back when you want to conceive because the issues are still going to be there. The pill's just going to mask that. Actually, we start to work with you now to help bring you back into balance because your body is showing that it's not.
Wow.
And this became, as I started journeying more and more into this and understanding more and more about the things that keep us further and further separated from our ovaries, from our wombs, and from our feminine power, the foods that we eat, the you know, environmental toxins, the thoughts that we have about ourselves, all of these things have such a big impact that it became really, really important for me as I started learning more and more to share, and to share without fear, but with love. And a woman on a fertility journey is, especially when they've been in it for a while, is scared. Like the fear is so high and so consuming. And the sense of feeling alone is so profound. Even if they're not, they'll feel very, very alone. And they'll feel very misunderstood. Especially, you know, you miscarry. Think about how we're indoctrinated that a baby isn't recognized as being a viable pregnancy until 12 weeks, that 12-week scan. Like the language that's around this, you know, women are encouraged not to tell anybody they're pregnant until they've had a 12-week scan. Which the damage I see happen from that is that when women miscarry, they don't know what to do with that because they felt like they were a mum, they've experienced being a mum, they've had the hormones, but they weren't to tell anybody. And what right do they have to grieve because they hadn't had a 12-week scan to confirm that this pregnancy was even viable? So women come to me with all this grief that they don't know what to do with, because the messages that they receive, the messages that this isn't significant, this isn't important. And I'm here to call BS on that. This is some of the most important things that women need to hear. Their experiences of their journey are valued, are absolutely honoured and sacred, and that they have every right to feel how they feel. And that feelings during this journey are just as important as the clinical procedures that go around fertility. And just as important as like these hormone tests are just as important as, you know, IVF medication. How you feel held, seen, valued, how you feel led and guided to be able to hold space to, if you feel called to honour your baby and the loss that you've experienced, to have that ceremony of being able to say goodbye, to have that space to be as a woman and make judgment calls around your body and the treatments and the processes that you will go through and be open to, and to find your voice within those times and amongst that fear, even being able to find your voice at the end and say no more. This is the stuff that we don't talk about in fertility journeys. And this is the stuff that I feel so passionate around women having the space to be held and to have some ways in which they can navigate this, because this is the stuff that leaves imprints and scars in women's hearts and women's psyches, and it's the stuff that we just don't talk about. And you won't find on the, you know, the Pinterest or the Instagram, you know, fertility diet. That stuff is great. That stuff is so needed, but it's still very masculine in approach. Take this, do this, take this, do this. But what about the woman's essence? What about her feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling heard? What about her feeling empowered to make choices where actually she can walk forward to IVF in a greater sense of ease, knowing that actually she's got what she needs to be able to transition through that process in the most loving and nurturing way? These are the things that, this is where the power is. This for me is women really being empowered and really being able to reclaim who they are. And then, you know, likewise, if fertility treatment doesn't work out the way how they planned, or their fertility journey didn't work out as they planned, that space, that void of having one dream of becoming a mum, to then letting that dream go, and even considering that there is a future with fun, with freedom, with fulfillment without children, can seem like the biggest journey in the entire world. And there is very little, or certainly when I went on my journey, again, there was very little that kind of, where I saw other women that went, come over here and I can help you through this. You know, we've got some of the roadmaps already laid out. I just was in this void. And so that then informs part of my work, to be able to also be a beacon of light, and to be able to say, there is a sisterhood. You are not alone in this. And these are some of the steps that, and these are some of the paths that you can travel that will really support your healing. And you know what? As a woman who is child-free, there is a fun life. There is a life that's full of freedom, and like freedom from the heart wounds too. And there is a life that's full of fulfillment. And will there be bumps? Absolutely, because this is healing. This is what it is. But there is also so much richness within this. And that's what, you know, come September, I'm beginning to share more of, is when women are in that void, how to transition into that, so that you can dare to hope and dream again. And, you know, fertility journeys tend to shatter that. But to be in that place where you have the courage and the trust to get curious about your future, to get excited about your future, and to dare to hope and dream again, it's a very beautiful space.
Oh, wow. I could just listen to you speak all day. It's like a dream. I went through stopping myself cry twice, and lots of goosebumps as you talk across my body, because I know that's really going to touch people, what you just said. I can feel the response already. And the people in the future that get to watch it, you know, they can share it with their friends who are struggling. You know, just sharing this video to someone that's just a little bit lost, a little bit heartbroken, that can't seem to move forwards, that don't feel they deserve happiness, that don't deserve that they're good enough, that feel that their body's letting them down, that feel like life has let them down. They can't see that hope moving forwards. They've just been offered it in just listening to you talk. And I know you've been through it all, and you guys can, you don't even need to go into depth here, Tara, but you can, I'm sure people watching can know, they just feel that you have. You wouldn't be able to really hold people in the way you do if you hadn't been there yourself.
Absolutely. And that's where my passion comes from. But like, I live this stuff I breathe this stuff, when I'm sharing tools or ways, or just even holding space, I was gifted those things on my journey, and they made such a difference. And I'm not saying that this waist magic wand and suddenly your life is a fairy tale and life is amazing. There are, you know, this is a lifelong journey. And there are ways to help ease some of the suffering and the pain and the heartache and the loss. And then there are ways to rebuild yourself as a woman so that actually you can learn to, if loving your body and loving yourself goes too far, you can get to the point where there's a space of acceptance and of peace and, you know, perhaps liking, and then perhaps loving doesn't seem so far away. And joy, like remembering who you were before you went on this journey that just, you know, obliterated you, finding joy again, having fun again, and really finding out who you are, you know, again, because for many women, their fertility journeys weren't a month. We're talking years. That's a long time to be consumed by by, you know, relentlessly pursuing something that doesn't come to fruition. So to come to this place where actually you can find out who you are, what light you are, and then be in a space where you've got, you know, guidance, people, other women, other sisters with you. You don't have to do this stuff alone. It becomes something very, very special. And that's my belief anyway. And everybody is different. And that's the other thing I celebrate. Some women, they want to, you know, this won't resonate with. And that's awesome. There's 7 billion people in the world. So let's find what does resonate for you, empower yourself to work with what does resonate, and also empower yourself to let go of what doesn't. The most powerful place that you can be.
I wanted to talk about, like, I wanted you to share your experience of the medical profession, if you don't mind, versus what it feels like to bring in holistic support. And then after that, I'd love you to share what tools you use personally through your journey, and then what you'd recommend for other people. Is that enough? Because some people will only never have anyone to talk to about this. They won't know about using things like you know, looking at the nutrition, looking at oils, looking at meditation, doing emotional clearing work. Like, they won't have had that perhaps introduced them until maybe even this video, who knows. So they would have only known the medical route, or maybe they're about to go through that journey. Okay, so what is your experience of that? And you don't need to I want you to be really honest.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will be.
Okay.
Versus, you know, how you felt when you went and did your own research and got your own sort of holistic support. Yeah.
Okay. So I am for our medical teams, our medical approach. I believe that we've got some incredible stuff. And I want to make that clear that I am in full respect of our Western medical model. Because there are a number of people that feel like it has to be one or the other, holistic or medical. And I believe it needs to be both. So I'm in appreciation. I love the fact that if I get hit by a car, I've got A&E and they will put me back together. If I break my leg, there are surgeons that are going to help stitch me up. I love the fact that we have IVF and that women who, you know, have broken fallopian tubes, disconnected fallopian tubes, still have the opportunity to conceive a child. How incredible is that? However, and this is a big however, it is a piece of the puzzle that they covered that much, and there is this much to it. The limitations that operate within the medical model, just like there are limitations within the holistic model, have to be recognized, I believe. They're very, very clinical. And let's talk about IVF, like that's one of IVF and miscarriage. So IVF, in essence, what they do is they take they're a dating agency, basically, our IVF clinics. They introduce an egg and a sperm together in the hope that a baby will be made. That's, in essence, what a fertility clinic does. Some of the really, really good ones will look at supporting with this, but they don't tend to work on the health of the egg. They don't tend to work on the health of the sperm. They don't tend to actually do much, many clinics don't actually tend to do much investigatory work before you start pumping yourself, especially women, full of drugs, and start to go through these very invasive programs. There is a guy named Professor Winston, he's Robert Winston. I love him. He is, you may know him, he did a program called A Child of Our Time. He followed.
Yeah, loved him.
He is incredible, isn't he? He is one of the founders and pioneers of IVF. He is incredible within his field. He's a pioneer of IVF, and he publicly states that how IVF was set up is not how it's being manipulated, and that people are shoved down IVF way too quickly. There should be far more research done, far more investigation, because actually, as it would turn out, with more investigation, with more of that right medical intervention, far few people would need IVF. And that he sees that IVF is just a route where people are being chucked at, and it's becoming a money machine, and he is public on record with this.
Wow, that's good to research him then, guys. Yeah, Professor Robert.
Yeah, and will also fully advocate IVF. He is like I say, he's one of the forefathers of this, but he is also very, very open about how it is being misused right now. So that's the first thing. The second thing is miscarriage. Again, in the medical world, they don't start doing any investigations into women and their fertility until they've had 3 miscarriages. Well, that's 3 bereavements. That's a lot for a woman to go through. And again, what messages does that say about validating a woman's experience? That's 3 bereavements, especially if they're under 12 weeks. The idea is that the words are, it just wasn't a viable pregnancy. There is very little counselling support that is offered. There is very little acknowledgement of the woman's journey. Once she's seen those 2 blue lines, that she's become a mum, and then that's been pulled away. Even some of the physical pain that she goes through, that can be really, really minimised. And again, it's all of these things that either are directly implied or indirectly are implied about the woman's experience and the value of her grief and loss and sadness. But likewise, like I say, the medical profession has all of this, but it's not nurturing. You expect to receive any nurturing through medical professionals, you won't receive that. Being understood as a woman, the word stressful is banded around on the fertility journey by the medical professionals, with very little explanation as to how it might destroy your life, your sense of identity as a woman, your friendships, your relationship with your partner, your sex life, how you feel about your body, how you trust yourself. That comes under the umbrella term of stress. Yeah, it's quite bizarre. Doctors, I was told this is the extent of my prep for IVF. Get your BMI within a certain, this is the guidance, get your BMI within a certain level, don't smoke, curb your drinking, and have a balanced diet. That's the guidance from clinicians. It's not really that profound. So again, those are where its limitations are. Likewise, I know that holistic approaches, you can't get a look inside the body, you can't see blood tests, you can't see what's going on within your hormone levels, you can't see with scans. It's amazing being able to see inside your body. It's valuable, vital information to look at hormones and profiling. But that holistic approach to break down what foods are going to be super helpful to your fertility, what mindset is going to be super helpful, ways to, when you're having those dark nights of your soul, when your anxiety is sky high, when you've got clinic appointments and you're so nervous and anxious around them, when you have experienced loss, that actually you're given protocols, that you've got ways to help calm some of the heightened emotions. You've got rituals that you can perform to be able to say goodbye to your baby and honor your baby, that you've got spaces to come with other women who have been through this journey and get you and get why this is a big deal for you and get why you might be wanting to pull away from the world, who, when your friends are all having babies and it feels too much to be around them, understand when you say, I can't be there today, who get when you say, I think I'm miscarrying. No, perhaps drop a little food parcel off and just go, I see you, I hear you, who check in on you because they understand that this is significant. That's where holistic comes in, having a place and ways to be able to work with all of those things, your mind, your body and your energy, understand ways to build yourself up after a miscarriage rather than simply just going back and having sex, but ways to actually be able to nourish your body with the right foods, the right exercise, because it will change and it will move and it will shift depending where you are in your journey. The conversations you need to have with your partner, the conversations with your family, being able to say what it is that you want, is in, I really like this clinic, but I don't like that clinic. Knowing you have permission to go and explore clinics and go and find out what you even want, and that there are different IVF protocols, because that isn't even spoken about. This is where holistic is so super helpful. But like I say, it has its limitations too. But I went through my final IVF journey. I fused both of them. I fused the medical world with my own wants, needs and desires. I got guides in who spoke my language, and me and my husband journeyed through our IVF experience, that last one, which whilst it was unsuccessful in terms of becoming pregnant, we moved through that in a bubble of love and support. I will always cherish what was created during that time, because that to me felt so powerful. I was nervous, I was apprehensive, of course it's a big deal, every cycle is, but I went through it in my way, and in a way that felt real and true and honouring to me. And the same with my partner. And I just, I always come back to, how would I want to bring a child into this world? And being scared, being detached, having strangers around my baby was not how I planned or wanted. So what could I do to make this the most sacred act of introducing my baby into this world? And that's where it feels, where I felt called to. And when I activated that, that's when I felt powerful.
It is all about us, isn't it, this journey? It's all about us and what we learn and how we grow and how we bring back pieces of our soul and our power and learn really truly to love ourselves, even after hardship.
And we've all got a hardship, right? That's life, isn't it? This is my story, my fertility journey. Other women, it comes through in other ways, but life still does life. None of us are exempt from it. And so, you spoke before about tools, things that have been so helpful. First and foremost, finding the right guides and spaces that I could feel safe within was so key, because this stuff runs deep. Like fertility stuff runs very deep. It cuts to your soul. So that was a really big thing, having people who understood. And just because they're a professional, like a professional counsellor or psychotherapist, doesn't mean that they'll get this.
No.
It doesn't. I've had conversations with psychotherapists that are amazing in their field, but they didn't get that there may even be grief really attached to this. So you've got to find somebody who gets this. They don't necessarily have to have had the journey themselves, but get this, and you feel heard and understood, and that people you feel safe with.
Tara, sorry to interrupt you. Just come to me. Just something. how can people discern? Can you give some tips? Say someone like, right, I'm going to reach out to someone, and maybe they're a bit disconnected from their intuition a bit, and they are still feeling that desperateness, and they're like, something's just coming in to answer my own question. So like setting the intention and getting, like, you know, like when you, like for me, it's calling in my ideal man. I'd make a list of all the qualities of that person. So that's one way. You could just like have a bubble bath, have some nice music on, and daydream about how you're going to feel wrapped up in love from that person. And you might have to, but that is so powerful. But have you got any other tips for someone to discern, like what to look for in someone that maybe is not going to be too helpful, and tips for how can you recognize if someone is, like, is it a feeling, or is he feeling safe, like that? But yeah, anything else?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, because so for me, how I would start getting people to discern, firstly, get curious. So know it's within your right to go and phone up some people, to look at websites, to go and watch videos. Don't put pressure on yourself that you are going to find the perfect person all at once. Yes. Know that it's totally within your power to have conversations with people. Try them out, as in, see how you feel when you have those conversations. Do you feel like you want to share, or are you feeling like, no, this, you know, check in with yourself during those conversations. Are you finding yourself, no, I don't want to share anything? Or are you, even, you might still have fear and you might still feel really vulnerable and uncomfortable because this is big stuff, but you are still offering information and feeling like you want to share. I would suggest then that starts to be some really good signals to you that this is somebody that perhaps would be helpful to work with. And also know, like, that permission to get curious and explore. Know that you might do a couple of sessions with somebody and then you go, actually, this isn't working for me. Know that, or you've got all that you need, because you might need different guides at different points for different things. That then you can also, the power is yours to then move on from that relationship. Like, you are not committing your life to that person.
Yeah, great advice.
And so you just go gently and you explore, get curious, and then just move it at the next steps. And any therapist, it doesn't matter so much what they do as to how much you resonate. Because if you resonate, then that you're going to feel safer, you're going to share more, and you're going to then be more open to the healing that comes from that. So yeah, get curious, explore, start conversations, see how you start to feel in those. If you feel yourself coming up, starting to go within, I'd suggest that's probably not good. But if you find yourself starting to talk and share, even if you do feel vulnerable and scared, then, but if you're starting to share and there's a part of you that goes, okay, I feel okay-ish here, through to yes, listen to that. And then know that you're not committing to a life practice together. You're just then looking to get curious about the next stage of working together.
Yeah, because I've had people come to me for one-to-ones, and they've talked about fertility, and I'm not an expert in that. I haven't been through that myself in this life anyway, but they feel they can share. So I think you're right in saying that, you know, and I've been to see psychiatrists, psychologists for trying to understand psychosis, but actually the best people are people that are not even qualified, but actually gone through it. Oh my goodness, they've been amazing to talk to. So even finding a friend.
Absolutely. And know that this, and treat this with honor and respect. Your story, your journey is something to be respected. And if that person receiving that, when you open up and share, friend, therapist, professional, you don't feel is treating it as that, move on. They're not the right person for you. And that, again, if you ever get given the gift of somebody opening up and sharing about a fertility journey, know that that was not easy. Like, that is a gift to receive in that other person talking and sharing. So that becomes so powerful of owning who you talk and share and how. And gentle with those that don't get it, because that's okay too.
Yeah. So like checking in with how you feel after that initial phone call, because actually how you feel is more important than you realize, because you might be at a point where you feel you don't even deserve anything in terms of support and love. So it's retraining that part of you that might want to go down the line of, you might naturally be drawn to someone who isn't actually that empathic or loving and supportive, and that's a reflection of how you feel about yourself. So being mindful of that all down the line and trusting that support will come in. So, I've been to a point where I'm in really dark times, and I will just pray, and I'll plead, and I'll pray to source, sometimes to God, to my angels, just help me, and then I'll get 1 or 2 or 3 people that I know. I'm lucky, I've got so many lovely friends who are intuitive and healers, and so there's so many people I could speak to. And actually the people that come in are maybe not the obvious choice, but when I've followed my intuition and what I've seen, when I've really prayed and then surrendered to the support, it's been an amazing outcome. So trusting yourself, learn to trust yourself again.
Absolutely. And know that you might need different people for different things. I know one of the key people in me rebuilding my life after I've made the decision to walk away from having children to any further treatment was a guy, a money mindset, and a dude in the States who was all about making an awesome life. And I never met him, we never worked one-to-one, even though I worked much closer with him, but he was so instrumental in helping me, because he wasn't in the fertility industry, because he wasn't in that. So as I looked to rebuild my life, he was so monumental, because actually I could just forget for a moment that all this fertility stuff had gone on, and I got some really great stuff and guidance with some real kick up the butt stuff that was exactly what I needed for me to reclaim my power.
Wow.
So I've come in the most unusual ways that you could possibly ever imagine. And this is why I say get curious. And depending on where you are in your fertility journey, you will need different guides. You just will. And depending on where you're at, I would suggest that when you're in an IVF cycle, looking at a clinic, you're a little bit more in the moment of fertility. You're much, if you're still trying month to month, your fertility journey is here for you. If you are in a position where actually you're taking a year off, which I did at one point just to catch my breath, your fertility journey, you never forget it, you never leave it, but I had some space. It was here, always in my vision, but it wasn't all I saw. And so it was here, and I needed different people at those points. And then, again, I still need sisters. I still need guidance now, because this is life. But, my fertility journey is there. There's still bumps in the roads, because, hey, this is life. This is going to be what happens. But who I need now is very, very different to who I needed at all these other different times. So be open to receive and know that that person can move and shift and change, and that's okay. It's a journey. That's the key thing. And that's where sisterhood comes in, because you will need different sisters for different things. When I pick up the phone to you, I know that we're going to have a conversation that's probably going to involve things like 5D, elevation of consciousness, global issues, the rising of the planet's consciousness, the rising of our own consciousness. I know that when I enter into the sisterhood, that's what we're talking about, vibrations and frequency. I know that we're going to have those conversations. But I also know that I've got friends who are very much more about sort of the medical model. It wouldn't be fair for me to have conversations about raising 5D consciousness. What we're going to have is a bit more about the educational system and what's going on within that system, and actually ways to enhance the learning of children in terms of practical application of, at what point they might take a SAT. You have different sisters for different things.
Absolutely. I love, there's so much in there. And when you said the word receive, it was like, oh, yes, teaching women how to be in their divine feminine through all of this, which Absolutely. Is be able to receive. That might be tricky for some people to receive that love, support, because they are, would you say, more in their masculine if they're on this journey? I don't know.
I certainly think it can trigger going more into the sort of the imbalanced masculine, because let's be honest, to be in your feminine means that you've got to be in all of you. And when your heart hurts and you've had all these different experiences that have been really painful, doesn't it make sense that you want to start disconnecting rather than connection? Feminine energy involves connection, being able to give and receive love, and that can get really, really severed. And that's part of the journey of healing in your journey, fertility journey, whatever that looks like, is being safe enough to be able to open up some of those parts that feel really uncomfortable, really painful, and at times sitting in that pain. But that's where you also need somebody at that particular point who can also help reassure. And as these strong stuff comes up, go, okay, I'm with you, I hear you, I see you. You know, that's a very different energy to when you're like, right, I've got this idea, I want to live a life that feels really vibrant, and yes, things didn't work out, but I want to shed some of that now, and I really want to step into something. I've got another 40, 50 years on this planet, like, how am I going to make that the most awesome that it can possibly be? You're still on a fertility journey, but they're very, very different spaces. So yeah, you need different things at different times. And that, if you feel disconnected from your body, very sadly, that's a side effect of the fertility journey. It does that. And even just hearing that, I hope that offers a reassurance for whoever's watching, because that is sadly a common side effect. You know, it's very hard to, you hear love yourself. It's like, how can I love a body that's not worked? It's all it's done is disappoint and hurt and give me all this pain. Yeah, it's much easier to start severing connection. So to trust that you can open up your heart again takes lots of little moments of rebuilding trust. And that's where the tools come in. That's where these things come in, and without a shadow of a doubt, the things that have been instrumental for me is having the right guides at the right points, space where I can talk and share, having a way to bring myself back to balance, like daily tools, like meditation, breath work, yoga, HIIT workouts.
I know you like that, yeah.
Walkouts, like going for walks by myself or with girlfriends, going to sister circles where I feel safe to cry and feel like I'm recognized by other women. Essential oils have and play a massive, massive part in my healing journey, because they're a way for me to be supported without always needing another person there. And I see this with all my clients too. Sometimes you don't want other people in some of these really private, vulnerable moments, but you still need some support. And that's where things like essential oils so powerful in being with you during those times. Time by myself, like creating time out and giving time to rest, is another amazing tool, because this work is exhausting and that's not recognized. It's tiring. So having a diary that gives you space within it, that you're not full out, the right foods that are going to help to nourish your body, fill you up, the right fuel for your mind to be able to help acknowledge and accept your journey, and again to be able to have ways to manage the grief and to be able to process grief and acknowledge the grief. So rituals in which to say goodbye. I did so much letter writing and journaled and wrote letters. I've got pages and pages and pages because it was my way of expressing so much of what I held on to. Those are, tapping, EFT, incredible. Reflexology, kinesiology, conventional counselling, having people like that mindset coach that I worked with last year, it was nothing to do with fertility. that helped me get my sparkle back in my eyes and reconnect to living not just an awesome life, but a fucking awesome life. Like that. Holidays. So I'm off with my husband, or we can just down tools and go. These become the tools that so key.
Because they bring you back to your heart, don't they? I think, like, for me in my journey, it was remembering singing and dancing. My love for singing, my love for music and dancing has been
music, dancing. Oh, I have soundtrack.
You love that.
All of that, but you know, finding ways to dance, be free in your body again. That's how you start to enjoy it. And you don't always have to get in the ring with the deep psychological heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You can learn to be free through your body, dancing, singing, music. Oh my gosh, I have so many soundtracks. Like we danced together with Pink, that song, Here I Am, or it's something like that, Here I Am, and just the power of that song. And then in that moment where me and you were just dancing, just like, yeah, it was just, that was my anthem to helping to heal and reclaim my soul as a woman. You know, power of music, dance. Yeah.
What I'm hearing is balance, because just before that there was some quite deep past life stuff, and this is another thing that we don't need to talk about here because I know time as well, and it is deeper, and this is like more of a like let's get to know Tara sort of video. But I just keep getting pulled back to this. Well, what if there's deeper stuff here with ancestral? If you've got like a family history of like your mum's not being able to conceive, and maybe your grandmother, maybe there's something that's living within you in your DNA that could be cleared, and you could help with that with the work you do. Yeah. And past lives. I know that we've done past lives.
Yeah, you can't work in fertility without understanding links to the mother, grandmother, because of just how we're carried within the womb and the womb's energy, and then also ancestral stuff that comes down through our heritage. Yeah, it's profound. And so again, it's clearing, it's these energy clearings.
I see you doing that.
Pardon?
I see you going deeper into that, teaching about that in the future. I don't know, I just come in. And then going back to like what we were saying about the dancing and that moment, we had the very heavy healing and then the dancing, and it created this equilibrium.
Absolutely. And sometimes your healing won't come directly through being in your trauma or being in the events. The healing will come from like hit and sweating and knowing that you could lift that weight, and you're like, yes, set out to do it, and I could do it. It was about, so for last year, it was for me, it was experiences of connection like we had. It was I had the best year, last year, from when I was like, right, screw it. I'm going to go and see how much fun I can have. So I started creating all these amazing experiences, from time in London to going over to Ibiza to being out in Ireland to going to Australia. Like, I closed last year listening to Pete Tong with the symphonic orchestra, just like with a room of mine, just dancing and going back to my rave days, and it just being, you know, that's how I finished the year. After, in the start of January, I was like, okay, let's just get curious and like tiny micro steps, and these amazing experiences came.
Empowering, because you did it, you chose.
Yeah. And that's every part of your journey. You have a choice, and sometimes it feels like that gets squeezed hard from you. So this is where it becomes important. Remember your truth. Have these tools that bring you back to balance, because they bring you back in, and they can start very, very basic. Sleep, get the right sleep, the right food, your mind, your body. Have around you people who get you, and know that may sound different days. That's okay. Get out in nature. Yeah, and find people to come with you on the journey.
You know, you've just given people so much hope. And I know you're not too, this was planned yesterday. Let's do this. And we've been talking about this for about a year, Tara. Now's the right time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So beautiful. How can people work with you or reach you?
So I would suggest, as we were talking before, get curious. Come and find me on Instagram, because if it feels too like different tiers that you can do to get in connection with me, so come and find me on Instagram, Tara Perlaki, at Tara Perlaki, or who are on their fertility journeys, or looking for creating greater balance in their life. And then the next bit, if you're trying to transition into this where fertility treatment hasn't worked out and you're getting curious or starting to come into that space of journeying with being child-free, then look out for a road less travelled. So there's going to be, that's where I'm showing up. Likewise, if you feel that you are ready to connect, I would love to speak to you, because this is all about connection. So I offer everyone the opportunity for us to have a chat over the phone, like a virtual coffee and cake session, as it were. And let's have a chat and see where you're at in your journey and see what support may be really helpful for you. And that might be all that you need, is just the sort of a half an hour friendly chat. But if there is then more, then I would then invite you in to come and have a session with me, and then you can start to take it from there. But everything is about being led your space, your time, and know that, when the time's right, there'll be something. Even if there's fear, remember, this isn't a journey absent of fear. Perhaps don't have fear in the driving seat. No, they'll be in the car with you. So yeah, come and follow me on Instagram at Tara Perlaki. And
a road less travelled. Is that is that a project, or is that a Facebook page or a website? Road less travelled, for women who are taking the path of the fertility.
That's for women who are starting to embrace a child-free life, that want to start looking at having a fun, a fulfilling, and a life full of freedom around being child-free.
Okay.
So that's be coming into fruition in September.
Okay.
To just be put together at the moment, and that will be programs that are going to be coming out, and events that are going to be coming out around that. So at the moment it's still in sort of its formational phase, but in terms of the one-to-one work, like, I'm available to have some conversations now.
Yeah, and what I love about you, Tara, is that you'll be really honest. If someone phones you up and you feel like you're not the right person, you'll be honest with them. Like, you're quite intuitive with that straight away. And I know you know lots of other people, you can recommend them to someone else if you feel like they'd be a better match. And I love that, because people are looking for guidance and they're a bit vulnerable perhaps, and looking for that support, and they don't know fully what they need perhaps, but you recognize what you can see more than they can about themselves in that moment. And obviously when you work one-to-one. So I love the fact that you're just totally honest, and the chat is free. So you've got nothing to lose by connecting, have you? In fact, so much to gain. I'm so grateful to know you, honestly. Yeah, and I know that you're a creator, and I know you have all these ideas, and I know that you work with oil, so you also can buy oils through Tara and learn more about that as well, and highest frequency ones, doTERRA. But also I'm really excited for what else will come from your creative ventures, in terms of holding space for maybe groups of women. You've done some video, I've done one of your 4-week courses over the summer, and lockdown was hard for most of us, right? And in places, and that really helped me to connect in. So I'm not on the fertility journey, but I still managed to get so much from that. So it's exciting, if you follow Tara on Facebook and Instagram, that you might just get something that's really worthwhile to receive in terms of her guidance and teaching and intuitive support. Show us the card again. Ta-da! Sisterhood of the rose oil as well.
I know, I don't have any rose oil. I've got geranium, I've got ylang ylang, I've got geranium. If you don't have rose oil, use geranium. That's such a good, because rose is so expensive, isn't it? So to have an alternative if you can't afford rose at this moment in time,
or just buy rose because you're worth it.
Yes.
The oil of divine love. I love that. I love that picture of they're in their hearts. Oh, they're smelling something.
They do, don't they? But she's got a rose in front of her. Maybe she's smelling, and they're smelling some candle or something in a cup.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks,
Oh.
Tara. I love that fell out. All right, my darling. Well, we'll finish up here. And so, yeah, I think that's everything. We've covered loads and more.
Yeah. It's been a long. If you've made it through the end, well done.
Let's do half an hour. Nah, not with me and you. But yeah, there's lots of gems in there, and an opening to explore your own healing journey yourself. So yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, lots of love, everybody. Bye.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Bye.